Unpacked. I'm Hannah Halley, and today we're diving into a topic that almost everyone has experienced at some point: imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is the feeling that you're somehow faking it or don't truly deserve your achievements, even when there's plenty of evidence that says otherwise. It's especially common among high achievers, and yes, even some of the most successful people you can think of deal with it. In this episode, we're going to break down strategies for overcoming imposter syndrome with insights from The Confidence Code by Katty Kay and Claire Shipman. This book explores the science of confidence, the social pressures that shape it, and practical ways to embrace and build self-assurance. We'll also look at real-life examples from leaders like Sheryl Sandberg and Michelle Obama, as well as a small business owner who turned her self-doubt into motivation. By the end of this episode, you'll have actionable tools to overcome self-doubt, own your accomplishments, and step confidently into your potential. To start, let's break down imposter syndrome, what it is, why so many people experience it, and how it can impact our confidence and performance. Imposter syndrome is essentially a feeling of self-doubt or inadequacy, despite clear evidence of success. People with imposter syndrome often feel like they're just faking it, worried that one day they'll be exposed as not good enough or not qualified. It's a persistent sense that somehow they don't truly deserve their achievements. The term imposter syndrome was first coined in the 1970s by psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes, who found that many high-achieving women felt this way. Over time, researchers discovered that imposter syndrome affects people across all demographics, genders, and professions. In fact, studies show that around 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. But why? According to The Confidence Code by Katty Kay and Claire Shipman, part of it stems from how society often teaches us to downplay our strengths and focus on our weaknesses. Even highly successful people deal with imposter syndrome. Take Sheryl Sandberg, former COO of Facebook and author of Lean In. Sandberg has been open about her struggle with self-doubt, even as one of the most powerful women in tech. In her book, she writes that she would often walk into boardrooms feeling like she didn't quite belong, or that one day someone would realize she wasn't the real deal. Despite her accomplishments, she couldn't shake the feeling that maybe she didn't fully deserve her seat at the table. What's powerful about Sandberg's story is that she doesn't let imposter syndrome hold her back. Instead, she acknowledges it, recognizes that these feelings aren't unique to her, and refocuses on her contributions and goals. Her story shows us that imposter syndrome isn't a sign of inadequacy. It's simply a feeling, and it's one that can be managed. Sandberg's experience reminds us that imposter syndrome doesn't necessarily go away with success. But by acknowledging it and focusing on the facts, we can start to see it for what it is: a natural response to stepping out of our comfort zone and aiming high. Recognizing these feelings as normal can be a powerful first step in reducing their impact. But what causes imposter syndrome, and why do we often feel like we're not enough? The Confidence Code points to social conditioning and comparison as major contributors. From a young age, many of us are taught not to brag about our achievements or to stay humble. This conditioning can make it hard to fully accept or celebrate our successes. Moreover, in today's hyper-connected world, we're constantly exposed to others' achievements, which makes it easy to fall into the comparison trap. We might see colleagues advancing or friends launching successful businesses and think, why don't I feel as accomplished as they seem? But what we often forget is that we're only seeing a highlight reel. Everyone experiences ups and downs, but social media and professional networks often showcase the ups, which can make us feel like we're falling short. Former First Lady Michelle Obama has also been open about her experiences with imposter syndrome. In her memoir, Becoming, she writes about feeling like she didn't belong in certain academic or professional spaces. Despite her numerous achievements, Obama felt as though she constantly had to prove herself, especially as one of the few black women in her field at the time. Instead of letting these feelings control her, Obama learned to challenge them by focusing on her own accomplishments. She reminds herself, and us, that everyone has a unique story and a place at the table. Her story underscores the importance of focusing on what we've achieved, rather than getting caught up in how we think we should feel. If you struggle with comparing yourself to others, try focusing on your personal growth and achievements. Start a success journal where you jot down small wins and milestones each day or week. This can be a simple but effective reminder of the progress you're making and helps to shift your focus back to your own path. Another factor that contributes to imposter syndrome is perfectionism. Many people with imposter syndrome set unrealistically high standards for themselves, which leads to feelings of inadequacy when they don't meet their own expectations. Perfectionism and imposter syndrome often go hand in hand, creating a cycle where we feel we're never quite good enough. For example, we might achieve a major milestone at work or get positive feedback from colleagues, but instead of celebrating, we focus on what could have been better or criticize ourselves for tiny mistakes. Over time, this mindset can fuel self-doubt and make us question our abilities, even when there's plenty of evidence that we're doing well. A remarkable example of this comes from the legendary author Maya Angelou, who, despite publishing numerous best-selling books and winning countless awards, admitted that she often felt like a fraud. In one interview, she said, "I've written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody, and they're going to find me out." Maya Angelou's experience reminds us that even people we view as incredibly accomplished struggle with these feelings. Her story shows us that it's possible to move forward and create something meaningful, even if we sometimes feel like an imposter. If perfectionism fuels your imposter syndrome, try adopting a good enough mindset. Aim for progress, not perfection, and remind yourself that small steps are still steps forward. Celebrate what you did accomplish rather than fixating on what you didn't. To sum up, imposter syndrome is common and affects people from all backgrounds and industries. Whether it's Sheryl Sandberg walking into boardrooms, Michelle Obama in academic circles, or Maya Angelou publishing her 11th book, self-doubt doesn't discriminate. But by recognizing imposter syndrome for what it is, a feeling, not a fact, we can start to reframe it. Now we're going to discuss how to overcome imposter syndrome by reframing negative self-talk and celebrating successes. Stick around as we dive into practical strategies for recognizing and shifting these limiting beliefs. One of the most effective strategies for overcoming imposter syndrome is reframing negative self-talk. People with imposter syndrome often focus on their perceived flaws or shortcomings, feeding a cycle of self-doubt. But when we challenge these thoughts and celebrate our wins, even the small ones, we can start to build a healthier and more accurate view of our abilities. The Confidence Code emphasizes that confidence is built by acknowledging our strengths and recognizing our accomplishments. When we take time to celebrate our achievements, we break the habit of dismissing them as luck or just a fluke. This doesn't mean being arrogant. It simply means giving yourself credit where it's due. Every accomplishment, big or small, is proof of your capability and effort. Let's look at Michelle Obama, who has spoken openly about her struggles with self-doubt, even after reaching the White House. In her memoir, Becoming, Obama discusses feeling like she didn't always belong in prestigious spaces, but instead of letting that feeling control her, she shifted her focus to her accomplishments. She reminded herself of the hard work that got her where she was, and instead of questioning her right to be in the room, she started to trust her own journey. Obama's story is a powerful reminder that acknowledging your achievements can help you build resilience. By focusing on what you've done rather than what you feel you lack, you can begin to see yourself in a more balanced, positive light. Her approach teaches us that we don't have to erase self-doubt entirely. We just need to manage it so it doesn't hold us back. Michelle Obama's strategy of focusing on achievements rather than doubts is a powerful tool for building confidence. It's not about ignoring self-doubt. It's about giving equal weight to your successes so you get a clearer picture of your strengths and contributions. Let's talk about practical ways to reframe negative self-talk. When you catch yourself thinking, "I'm not good enough," or "I don't belong here," pause and replace that thought with something more balanced. For example, try saying, "I'm learning and growing every day," or "I've earned this opportunity and will make the most of it." Another helpful strategy is to keep a win journal where you jot down small victories, achievements, or compliments you received. This doesn't have to be anything major. Small wins count. Over time, you'll have a record of positive moments that reinforce your sense of accomplishment. Reflecting on these small wins can shift your focus from self-doubt to self-confidence. A great example of reframing self-doubt comes from comedian and writer Tina Fey. Despite her success, Fey admits that she often feels like an imposter. But rather than letting negative self-talk take over, she chooses to push through by focusing on her work and the positive feedback she receives. Fey once said, "You can't be that kid standing at the top of the water slide, overthinking it. You have to go down the chute." Fey's approach shows that self-doubt doesn't have to stop us in our tracks. By focusing on her successes and ignoring the voice in her head, saying she's not good enough, she's been able to achieve incredible things. Her story reminds us that sometimes the best way to quiet self-doubt is to acknowledge it and take action anyway. Try keeping a win journal where you write down 1 or 2 accomplishments or positive moments each day. When self-doubt creeps in, go back to your journal to remind yourself of the wins you've had and the progress you're making. It's a simple yet powerful way to keep your focus on the positive. Celebrating successes, big and small, can make a huge difference in overcoming imposter syndrome. The Confidence Code highlights that taking time to acknowledge your achievements is essential to building self-belief. When we celebrate our successes, we reinforce a positive self-image and remind ourselves that our accomplishments are real. Celebrating successes doesn't mean throwing a party every time you complete a project. It's simply about pausing to acknowledge your effort and giving yourself credit for a job well done. This practice of self-recognition is particularly helpful in counteracting imposter syndrome because it reminds us that we are capable and worthy of success. For a more everyday example, consider a small tech startup where team members celebrate small wins at the end of each week. Every Friday, they have a brief meeting where everyone shares one achievement from the week, whether it's solving a difficult coding problem, closing a new client, or simply learning something new. This small weekly ritual has helped the team develop a positive and supportive culture where each person feels acknowledged for their contributions. One team member shared that at first she struggled with imposter syndrome, feeling that she didn't have the right skills to work at a fast-paced startup. But over time, as she participated in these small win sessions, she began to see her accomplishments and realized she was making valuable contributions. This weekly practice of celebrating wins reinforced her confidence and helped her overcome feelings of inadequacy. If you're part of a team, consider setting aside a few minutes each week for everyone to share a small win. If you're on your own, take time at the end of each day or week to reflect on what went well. Celebrating small wins builds momentum and reminds you that each achievement, no matter how small, is worth acknowledging. Think of it like putting money in a piggy bank. Each small win is a coin, and before you know it, you've got a full bank of confidence to pull from whenever imposter syndrome creeps in. To sum up, reframing negative self-talk and celebrating our successes are powerful tools for overcoming imposter syndrome. Whether it's Michelle Obama focusing on achievements, Tina Fey pushing through self-doubt, or a startup celebrating small wins, these practices help us shift our focus from what we feel we lack to the strengths we bring to the table. Coming up next, we'll look at the importance of embracing failure as part of the growth process, rather than seeing it as evidence of inadequacy. Stick around for more strategies to overcome imposter syndrome and build lasting confidence. Another powerful strategy for overcoming imposter syndrome is embracing failure as part of growth. People with imposter syndrome often see failure as proof that they're not good enough, which only reinforces their feelings of inadequacy. But the Confidence Code emphasizes that failure is a natural, even essential part of building confidence and learning new skills. When we start to see failure as feedback rather than a final verdict on our abilities, we can move forward with resilience instead of fear. In fact, many of the most successful people have faced failure, sometimes repeatedly. The difference is that they don't see failure as a reason to stop. they see it as an opportunity to learn, adapt, and try again. By shifting our perspective on failure, we can approach challenges with curiosity rather than anxiety, turning setbacks into stepping stones toward growth. A great example of embracing failure as part of growth is Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. When Blakely was growing up, her father would regularly ask her at the dinner table, "What did you fail at today?" If she didn't have an answer, he would encourage her to go out and try something new, even if it meant failing. This practice helped Blakely develop a unique mindset around failure. When she started Spanx, she wasn't afraid of mistakes because she saw failure as part of the process. She learned to view setbacks, like rejected prototypes and initial struggles to get her product into stores, as opportunities to learn and improve. Blakely's willingness to embrace failure and keep going helped her build Spanx into a billion-dollar business. Blakely's story shows that when we redefine failure as feedback, it loses its power to hold us back. Embracing failure allows us to try new things without the fear of imperfection, ultimately leading to greater innovation and success. The concept of failing forward is about using failure as a learning tool rather than a reason to give up. When we fail forward, we don't ignore our mistakes. We analyze them, identify what went wrong, and adjust our approach. This mindset helps us build resilience and keeps us moving toward our goals, even when things don't go as planned. In the Confidence Code, Katty Kay and Claire Shipman emphasize that confident people don't let setbacks define them. Instead, they view setbacks as temporary and take action to improve. This doesn't mean they're immune to self-doubt. It just means they're willing to push through it by seeing failure as a stepping stone. An iconic example of failing forward is Steve Jobs' journey with Apple. After co-founding Apple, Jobs was famously fired from the company in 1985. It was a major setback, and he could have let it shatter his confidence. Instead, Jobs took what he learned from his initial failures, started new ventures like Next and Pixar, and eventually returned to Apple in the 1990s. Armed with new insights, Jobs transformed Apple into one of the most valuable companies in the world. His experience illustrates that failure doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be a powerful tool for learning and growth. Jobs' comeback reminds us that embracing failure and learning from it can lead to even greater success. When you experience a setback, try doing a quick failure analysis. Ask yourself, what did I learn? What would I do differently next time? And what strengths did I develop as a result? This approach helps turn failure into actionable insights that build resilience. For a more everyday example, consider a local bakery that learned to embrace failure through customer feedback. When the bakery first launched, they introduced a specialty menu with unique flavors, hoping to stand out in a competitive market. But the reception was lukewarm. Some flavors didn't sell well, and the bakery was losing money on ingredients for products that weren't popular. Instead of seeing this as a failure, the bakery owner decided to view it as feedback. They surveyed customers, asking what they liked and didn't like about the menu. By incorporating this feedback, the owner adjusted the offerings to better meet customer preferences. Over time, these adjustments paid off, with sales increasing as they refined their menu based on what customers actually wanted. This experience taught the owner that failure was simply part of finding what worked for their business. For small business owners, view customer feedback as valuable information rather than criticism. Each piece of feedback, whether positive or negative, is a chance to learn more about your customers and improve your offerings. By embracing this mindset, you'll be more resilient and open to adapting. 2. One of the most powerful ways to overcome imposter syndrome is by reframing failure as part of the path to mastery. When we see failure as a necessary part of learning, it becomes less intimidating. Every great leader, athlete, and artist has faced countless setbacks on their way to success. What sets them apart is their willingness to keep going, even when they make mistakes. In the Confidence Code, the authors highlight that confident people don't avoid failure. They expect it. This mindset shift helps them take on challenges with less fear because they know that mistakes are part of progress. By reframing failure as part of the learning process, we can approach new challenges with a growth-oriented mindset. Michael Jordan once famously said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Jordan's words are a testament to the power of embracing failure as part of growth. He didn't let missed shots define him. Instead, he viewed them as part of the process. Jordan's willingness to embrace failure allowed him to improve his game, build resilience, and ultimately become one of the greatest athletes of all time. Next time you face a challenge, remind yourself that every failure is a step closer to mastering your skills. Try keeping a learning journal where you jot down one lesson from each setback. Over time, you'll start to see how these small lessons build into progress. In summary, embracing failure as part of growth allows us to approach challenges with resilience rather than fear. Whether it's Sarah Blakely's focus on learning from mistakes, Steve Jobs' comeback at Apple, a bakery adapting to customer feedback, or Michael Jordan's view on missed shots, these stories remind us that failure isn't the end. It's just part of the journey. Next, we're going to look at the power of building confidence through action and why taking even small steps outside our comfort zone can help us overcome imposter syndrome. Stay tuned as we continue exploring strategies for confidence and self-belief. Another key way to overcome imposter syndrome is by building confidence through action. In the Confidence Code, Katty Kay and Claire Shipman explain that confidence isn't something we're born with or something we magically find. It's something we create by taking action. Each time we step outside our comfort zone, even in small ways, we build a little more confidence. When we take these actions regularly, we start to see ourselves as capable, resilient, and deserving of success. The authors describe confidence as a muscle that grows stronger each time we use it. Each action becomes a building block, reinforcing our self-belief. The key is to take small, manageable steps that gradually push us to expand our boundaries. These steps don't have to be monumental. Even small actions can lead to big changes over time. An inspiring example of building confidence through action is Reshma Saujani, the founder of Girls Who Code. Early in her career, Saujani struggled with self-doubt, especially when she decided to run for public office. She was nervous, felt out of place, and ultimately lost the election. But instead of letting this setback define her, she used it as a springboard to start Girls Who Code, a non-profit organisation aimed at closing the gender gap in tech. Saujani often talks about how taking that initial risk of running for office helped her build confidence. It was scary, and she didn't win, but it taught her that stepping out of her comfort zone, even if it meant failing, was empowering. Through Girls Who Code, she encourages young girls to try coding, even if it feels intimidating at first. Her story shows that confidence grows each time we take action, especially when we push ourselves to try something new. Saujani's experience highlights that action breeds confidence. Each time we step out of our comfort zone, we're proving to ourselves that we're stronger and more capable than we may feel. By building confidence through consistent action, we can start to shift the way we see ourselves, one small step at a time. Let's dive into some practical strategies for building confidence through action. Start by identifying a small action you can take that's just outside your comfort zone. It might be speaking up in a meeting, trying a new skill, or reaching out to a colleague for feedback. These don't have to be huge steps. The idea is to challenge yourself in a manageable way. Another helpful strategy is to practice self-compassion when things don't go as planned. If we're taking risks, there will be times when things don't work out. By being kind to ourselves in those moments and recognizing that setbacks are part of the growth process, we can keep moving forward. For a more everyday example, let's consider a freelance designer who felt hesitant about taking on complex projects, fearing she wasn't experienced enough. Instead of turning down these opportunities, she decided to say yes and see each project as a learning experience. At first, she felt nervous, doubting her skills with each new assignment. But over time, as she completed more projects and received positive feedback from clients, her confidence grew. She began to see herself as someone who could handle challenges, and this mindset helped her take on even bigger projects with ease. Her story shows that by taking on tasks that stretch our abilities, we build the confidence to handle new and bigger challenges. If you're unsure where to start, try saying yes to one new challenge this week, even if it's small. It could be a project at work, a skill you've been putting off learning, or a chance to help a colleague. Each time you take action, you're building confidence, one step at a time. Taking action is one of the most effective ways to rewire our self-perception. When we challenge ourselves regularly, we start to see evidence that we're capable, resilient, and able to handle difficult tasks. Over time, our brains begin to associate these actions with a new, more positive self-image, gradually replacing feelings of inadequacy with a sense of self-assurance. According to the Confidence Code, one of the biggest barriers to confidence is inaction. When we don't take steps toward our goals, we reinforce self-doubt. But by consistently putting ourselves out there, we accumulate proof of our capabilities, which over time changes the way we see ourselves. Indra Nooyi, former CEO and chair of PepsiCo, is known for her proactive approach to leadership. Early in her career, Nooyi took on roles that many people considered out of reach, embracing challenges that were often outside her comfort zone. She famously asked for difficult assignments that would push her to learn and grow, from leading high-stakes projects to working across diverse teams. By consistently taking action, Nooyi developed a strong sense of self-confidence and resilience. She credits her willingness to take on new challenges as one of the keys to her success. Nooyi's journey highlights that by actively seeking out opportunities for growth, we build the confidence to excel in bigger roles and make bold decisions. To start rewiring your self-perception, set a small goal to take action on something that feels just a little challenging. By taking steps outside your comfort zone and reflecting on each success, you can gradually shift the way you see yourself, building a positive feedback loop of action and confidence. Think of building confidence like learning to ride a bike. You may wobble or even fall at first, but each pedal push gets you a little closer to balance. Soon enough, you'll be pedaling smoothly, maybe even coasting with no hands. Confidence doesn't come from one big success. It's built gradually through small, consistent actions. Think of it like training for a marathon. No one starts by running 26 miles. Instead, they build endurance little by little, mile by mile. Each small action we take is like one more mile, helping us build confidence in our abilities over time. The more we take these small steps, the more we build a record of achievements that we can look back on, reminding ourselves of what we're capable of. The best part? These actions don't have to be extraordinary. Each step, no matter how small, counts toward building a more resilient, confident version of ourselves. Take the example of a small business owner who wanted to expand their offerings but felt overwhelmed by the process. Rather than diving in all at once, they started by introducing just one new product and seeing how customers responded. With each successful launch, their confidence grew, and they gradually expanded into more areas, ultimately increasing both revenue and customer satisfaction. This steady, step-by-step approach helped them avoid feeling overwhelmed and made each new step seem achievable. By starting small, they built the confidence to take on bigger goals, proving to themselves that they could handle the challenges that came their way. If you're facing a big challenge, break it down into smaller, actionable steps. Focus on just one small action that you can take today and let each step build your confidence for the next one. Before you know it, those small actions will add up to significant progress. In summary, building confidence through action means consistently stepping out of our comfort zone, even if it's just one small step at a time. Reshma Saujani's journey with Girls Who Code, Indra Nooyi's approach to proactive leadership, a freelancer taking on new challenges, and a small business owner expanding their offerings, all show us that each action brings us one step closer to the confident, capable versions of ourselves. Now, we'll wrap up with key takeaways and a few actionable steps you can apply right away to start building confidence and overcoming imposter syndrome. Stick around as we conclude the episode with some final insights. As we wrap up today's episode on overcoming imposter syndrome, let's go over the key strategies we discussed. Imposter syndrome is something many people face, but by reframing our thoughts, embracing failure, and taking consistent action, we can gradually shift from self-doubt to self-belief. Each of these steps helps us focus on our strengths, embrace new challenges, and build a healthier, more confident self-image. So let's recap the key takeaways. 1. Recognize imposter syndrome and acknowledge. Understand that imposter syndrome is common and affects people across all levels, from CEOs to new hires. Leaders like Sheryl Sandberg remind us that self-doubt doesn't mean we're incapable. It's simply a feeling that we can learn to manage. 2. Reframe negative self-talk and celebrate successes. Shift your focus from self-doubt to achievements, just as Michelle Obama has done throughout her career. Keeping a journal of small wins and recognizing your accomplishments can reinforce positive self-perception and help silence that inner critic. 3. Embrace failure as part of growth. Adopt a fail-forward mindset, seeing setbacks as stepping stones rather than as reflections of inadequacy. Whether it's Sarah Blakely using failure to fuel her journey with Spanx or Steve Jobs making a comeback at Apple, these stories show that resilience is built by viewing failure as feedback. 4. Build confidence through action. Confidence grows each time we step out of our comfort zone, no matter how small the step. Reshma Saujani's journey with Girls Who Code and Indra Nooyi's proactive approach to leadership highlight that taking consistent action, even when self-doubt is present, gradually builds resilience and self-belief. Remember, overcoming imposter syndrome doesn't mean eliminating all self-doubt. It means learning to move forward, even when doubt is there. Confidence is something we create, step by step, action by action. By practicing these strategies, reframing our thoughts, celebrating our wins, embracing failure, and taking consistent action, we can rewire our thinking and become more comfortable with our strengths and achievements. As the saying goes, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. Each small action you take to challenge self-doubt and embrace your strengths is a step towards the person you're becoming. Embrace the journey, recognize each achievement, and remember that confidence is built in the doing. You don't need to wait until you feel 100% ready to take the next step. Just take it, and the confidence will follow. Think of building confidence like working out at the gym. The first few reps might feel awkward, but the more you do it, the stronger you get. Just remember, nobody becomes a champion overnight. It's those consistent reps that make the difference. Before we close, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome, and what strategies have helped you manage it? Share your thoughts in the comments or tag us on social media with #TheBusinessBookClub. Your insights might be just what another listener needs to hear. Thanks for joining me today on Leadership Unpacked. The next and final episode of this series, we'll be discussing sustaining long-term leadership. Until next time, keep embracing growth, celebrating your wins, and taking steps forward. Remember, confidence is built in the journey, not just the destination. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.